For the past couple of days, we have been on the road visiting Polyface Farm. And for those of you who don't know about Polyface, it's like the Disneyland for homesteaders and farmers. It's the best farm that I have seen, and I just love being there. And we've been there, what, a couple of times now, and we just love it. I'll never forget the first time that we went. I was excited and looking forward to meeting Joel Salatin, the man that I saw years ago on the movie Food Inc. and said, man, I want to farm like that guy. Yes, so our first time there, we get there and we have a flat tire right as we're there.
We meet him, we shake his hand, we say hey, and then we're like, our tire's going flat, like what should we do? And he's like, bring it on over to the shop. And
we're like, what?
Yeah.
You're the man here and you're gonna change our tire? And he sure did. He didn't call anybody else to come do it. On his day off, he took time to change our tire, and I was like, oh wow, what an excellent example of servant leadership. That was just really, really neat. The reason why we were at Polyface again this time was for two reasons. One was to record Joel and his son Daniel for this masterclass that I am putting together, and the masterclass is based on how to develop and lead a farm team. So if you're looking to have extra help on your homestead and to grow it, you get to the point sometimes where you just need to build a team. And that's where I'm at with here on our homestead. And I was like, all these times that we've been to Polyface, I'm like, these guys have a great team. Not only do they have neat animals and infrastructure and all that to look at, and all the landscape is just beautiful, the thing that really makes this farm special is the people.
And the other reason we were there is we were there for an event called God's Good Table. It's one of the most biblically based events that we have of the year. So it's really nice. You're talking about the Bible with other people, other in the farming community that want to grow their own food, that want to know how to raise the best food possible and how to do it. You know, how to make sourdough bread and ferments, and why you need to eat raw milk and raw dairy and all these other things. And you get to fellowship with people and eat with them, and that's whenever the best conversations happen, is when you're breaking bread with others. And over the past few days, we've had some great food and wonderful fellowship.
Yeah, and while we were there, we went to this really neat farm-to-table restaurant where I got chicken pot pie that had Polyface Farm chicken in it. It was really good.
And I also had this huge, delicious red snapper. It was great too.
And I had this huge, delicious hamburger, cheeseburger actually.
It was also an honor to be named one of the speakers at this event. There was a lot of great presentations there, and some of which I plan to share on the member section of our YouTube channel here. And one of my favorite speakers just to hear everywhere is just Joel Salatin. And to start off this event, Joel led us in morning reflections.
Good morning, everyone. It's quiet up here, except for the ducks. There's birds. You know, we Americans are brain damaged. King of Kings, Lord of Lords. I don't want a king. You ever think about that? We have a hard time, I should say I, have a hard time responding to a king. Who wants a king? I don't want a king. And yet the scripture is full of kingship, royalty. We Americans, there's a good biblical word, we eschew royalty. We like to come to the table and put in our 2 cents. Here's what I think, right? That's our mentality. So I'm going to tell you a story, then we're going to conclude with a couple scriptures. In my history, I've had the privilege of becoming friends with former Prince Charles, who's now King Charles. I've been with him several times. And the first time, the way this came about was the guy that hosted me to the UK is a very, very close friend of, at that time, Prince Charles. They play golf together for a couple weeks every spring in Transylvania. I don't know why you go to Dracula's place to play golf, but anyway, they're very close friends. And when Food Inc. came out, the documentary Food Inc., Prince Charles bought boxes of them, CDs, and gave them. That was before streaming, you know. He bought boxes of CDs and gave them to all his friends. He was so taken by that documentary. And so when Patrick was bringing me over to do some workshops, he called up Prince Charles and said, "Hey, you want to meet the good farmer in Food Inc.?" Prince Charles, "Yeah, I'd love to meet him," because he felt like, you know, his spirit, whatever, communed with my spirit, you know, intellectually or you know, in agriculture. So anyway, so I'm out in the Cotswolds. I'm doing this 2-day workshop out on a farm. You know, 200 or 300 people there in a great big event barn, old barn that's been completely repurposed into so they could have weddings and different things, glass all around. And so he's gonna come out. Now I want you to think through this. Whenever we Americans see British royalty, I mean, that's the closest to royalty we get, right? I mean, generally, we some of you might know kings in Africa, but I only had one king from Africa visit here. But normally when we think royalty, we think British, okay? And whenever we think of British royalty, we always think of, you know, screaming in the streets and crowds in London and big, right? Hoopla. So here I am out in the countryside. It's not London. There's no media there. So there was a center aisle in this place. And so, you know, we're there and we see the entourage come in. And he's got, you know, these 6 guys with, you know, necks bigger than their heads and little wires coming out of their ears and all this stuff. And they had already prepped the room so that only people he knew would be sitting on the aisle. The whole thing, I've been with him several times. I've been with him in Scotland. And the whole thing is, don't ever let him be in an awkward spot. We never want him to be in an awkward spot. So when he's in a tight packed room, people actually move and shove to make, so he doesn't have to say, "Excuse me, you know, are you with me?" I mean, it's really quite amazing. And so they brought in a special chair for him to sit right down front. And the plan was that we would stop what we were doing and I would do like a short 20-minute slide presentation synopsis for him directly in front. And he walked in. Remember, I'm American. I'm sitting there. You know, here's the next king, right? You could hear breath. You could hear people breathe. He walked in. There was not a sound. Not a sound. It was complete. Nobody bowed. But it was completely opposite what we think of as British royalty. But here was the king among his people. No media. This was real. This was authentic. It was authentic. They were completely reverential and in awe as he moved down. He shook hands high, you know, because they were all people he knew against the aisle. Came down, sat down. And I'll never forget it. It's one of the most powerful things. I was up front and I'm watching him come down. And of course, I'd already been prepped on how to agree. They said, "You let him lead." But this idea, I realized there's not a celebrity in the U.S. Well, as I stood there, there's not a celebrity in the U.S. that would walk into a room like this without cameras flashing and iPhones and what brouhaha, okay? Oh, you know, he's here. You know, Jay-Z, you know, Taylor Swift, what, you know, whatever, you know, he's here, okay? It was a completely different demeanor, completely different situation. I was reminded of Psalm 46. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in sunder. He burns the chariot in fire. Be still and know that I am God. In Revelation, we have another one. This is the one that really struck me. I couldn't help but be thinking of this. Revelation 8, verse 1. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And what has been this object lesson for me ever since then was to realize, to imagine a king that always made the right decision, that was always fair. That kind of king, I got nothing to bring to the table. I got nothing to say. All I want to do is I want to hear him. I want to hear what he has to say. I want to hear his directions. I'm not voting. I'm not being egalitarian, you know. That experience really helped me for the first time in my life, and this has only been, 6 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I don't know, not that long. For the first time in my life, to come into contact with the true sense of royalty, which is complete respect and honor. Here he was in the country among his people, totally authentic, no crowds in London, no media, and they weren't yelling. They were still. They were still. Now, I like praise songs as much as anybody, okay? But I'll tell you what, I think sometimes our American egalitarian, democratic, I want my voice to be heard, and I get all that. I mean, I'm a libertarian, right? Okay, I want people's voices to be heard. But let me tell you what, we follow a king here who is always right, always fair, always just. I've got nothing to put on the table. Nothing. All I want is what he puts on my table. That's all I want. And that is God's good table. Is taking what he wants to put on my table, listening, eating, understanding, and incorporating it, and then being his emissary, his ambassador as that royalty. That becomes suddenly an unbelievable privilege. I'm not representing myself. I'm not representing my faction of a political party. I'm not representing my faction of a protest or a walkout. I mean, that's our American tradition. And what really struck me was how brain damaged I am. I'm not ready for a king, okay? I'm ready for this king, okay? This king's the one to listen and direct. And I hope that encourages you and brings maybe some specialness to this royalty idea that we just have this deep DNA of abhorrence. I mean, we fought a revolutionary war to get rid of the king, right? And for us to be able to sit back and appreciate the magnificence and the magnitude of good royalty is a great way to appreciate and grow as where we are spiritually. And it starts with be still, and just listen and know and respect in awe and wonder and honor of this king that we serve.
It's really neat to hear that story from Joel. It really was a unique experience, but also combined with the spiritual lessons that Joel brought out, that was really neat to hear. Oh, and earlier I mentioned the master class that I am doing with Joel Salatin and Daniel Salatin. Well, it's going to be part of a bigger series that I'm calling From Homestead to Profitable Farmstead. And this first masterclass is going to be the first of several. And we're going to be talking about the concept of taking your homestead and making it more profitable. And if you're interested in seeing that class, of getting that class, make sure you click on the link in the show notes below where you can sign up for your email to get updates on when it's released and what we plan to do with it. And I do want to mention, for those of you who are advanced perk members of this YouTube channel, we're going to give you early access to chapters of that class as well as the full class. But in addition to that, presentations from conferences that I speak at, like I mentioned before, as well as monthly live streams that we do here on the channel. So those are, once again, for advanced perk members of this YouTube channel only. Man, we sure did get a lot in the past couple of days. It was fun, learned a lot, and I look forward to taking the things that I learned, especially from Joel and Daniel, applying them here and taking things to the next level. Woo!